We're here at the bottom of page 1 in section 1.8. And we're going to do a little comparison here. This is very, very important that you understand this next topic of having negatives involved and parentheses involved in exponents, and that you're able to translate that over to when we start to involve variables. Okay, the rules don't change between numbers and variables. The rules don't change. It all has to work the same way because a variable is just a number that we don't know yet. Okay, so let's compare negative 8 squared versus parentheses negative 8 squared. So what is the difference? Well, I said the word. Parentheses are involved here. Okay. Parentheses are different. Well, how does that change things? Well, we've already looked at parentheses squared. So over here on the right, we know what that means. By definition, that means whatever's in parentheses times itself. Okay, that's what squared means. And in this case, negative 8 is inside those parentheses. And you get a negative times a negative, which gives you a positive. And in this case, 8 times 8 gives you 64. So our answer is positive 64. Now let's go back and look at this first one, negative 8 squared. Very tempting to think, oh, that's the same thing. I square that negative, and I'm going to have a negative times a negative. But I've mentioned this from the beginning of chapter 1. It will do you a great service to start recognizing the fact that when you have a negative hanging out in front of something, it's as if that item is being multiplied by negative 1. This is really negative 1 times 8 squared. Okay? The square only applies to the 8. The parentheses is what holds that negative to the 8 in the second example on the right. And that's what causes the negative to be multiplied by itself twice. That's what gives you the negative times the negative equal to the positive. But on the left here, it's really negative 1 times 8 squared. That's what you want to train your brain. You will be so thankful to have this skill to be able to recognize that a negative is really a negative 1 times that item. We've mentioned it a couple times. Make sure you're feeling clear about it. Bring your questions to your help resource or to class. Whatever will be good for you. Now you can bring in the definition of the exponent. The exponent only applies to the 8. 8 is the base, 2 is the exponent. So we've got 8 times 8 here as our exponent. And we still have our negative 1 times that. From there, we can do order of operations. It's all multiplication from left to right. Or you could choose to do associative. You could deal with negative 1 times, first take the group of 8 times 8. Okay? What if we were to do order of operations? We'd go left to right. Negative 1 times 8 is a negative 8. And then you still have times that second 8 there. Now what you're looking at is a negative times a positive. And that positive was in turquoise. I'll just try to keep highlighting that in the same color. And when you have a negative times a positive, your answer is negative. And in this case, you would end up with a negative 64. So negative 8 squared gives you a negative 64. It's not the only way to think about it. You can do negative 8 times 6, or negative 1 times 64, and that answer is also negative 64. But negative 8 inside parentheses squared gives you a positive 64. So make sure those are really, really clear for you, that you could be confident explaining that to somebody and why that works. Parentheses matter. You have to have the parentheses around whatever is being multiplied using that exponent. Okay, the exponent only applies to what's inside the parentheses. If there's no parentheses, it only applies to the exact base that it's attached to, not anything else like a negative out front. Now, we're going to quickly move on to throwing in algebra here. Okay, we're at the end of chapter 1. We're moving ahead through the algebra course, so there's not going to be a lot of time spent in numbers anymore. You're going to try some things out and then jump right into the algebra. Let's read what the directions say so we're clear on what we need to do. They're asking us to simplify each algebraic expression. So algebraic means we can expect the variables to show up. Expression means there's no equal sign. We're just looking to combine things if possible. In fact, simplify, the two things we're looking to do for simplification is remove parentheses Sometimes you'll have to distribute. Sometimes it just means you'll be multiplying. Sometimes the parentheses are just there to say, hey, I'm a negative, look for me. The second thing we're going to do is combine like terms. Okay, and let's do just a quick review. We did it at the top of the page, but let's remind ourselves that like terms, I'll do it over here on the right side. Let's make sure I haven't scooted myself off the margin there. Good. Okay, like terms means exactly matching variables. And that has to include the exponents. The exponents of the variables have to match too. Okay? If they don't, they represent different values. Okay? Just like 6 cubed and 6 squared would be different. 6 cubed represents 216. 6 squared represents the number 36. 6 times 6. Different exponents. Okay? So 6 cubed does not equal 6 squared. It's 216 and 36. They're two different values. So I cannot combine exponents that have different, bases that have different exponents. They're not like terms, okay? So it's tempting, but don't do it. Resist. Understand what the variables mean here, what the exponents mean. Both the variable and the exponent have to match, okay? One little tip, when learning mathematics, some of you will find that your best route is to understand something first so that then you can practice it knowing why you're doing what you're doing. Others of you might need to play the trust game, meaning you might need to just trust the process, practice the rule that's given you. In this case, you can only combine it if the variable is exactly matching, okay, including the exponents. They have to exactly match. For some of us, we need to just trust that process until we've done it enough times till it gets comfortable, and then you can look at it and see the big picture and see why that happens, okay? Now, I don't know what kind of learner you are. I know sometimes it works for me one way, other times it works for me another way, but that's just a thought. And how do you know if you should just go ahead and trust? Well, sometimes if we are doing problems and we're just convinced it should be the other way, we keep trying to do it differently and we keep coming up with the wrong answer, that's a time where you need to go, okay, stop. Until I get really, really solid at this, I need to just trust the steps. Do what they tell me over and over again, even if I'm having other instincts, okay? Because if you're getting them wrong, we need to retrain those instincts. We need to create better habits. But let's look at this here. Number 18, 14x cubed plus 8x cubed. We've got both the variable and the exponent have to match here. So we have matching variables, x, and matching exponents. They're both x cubed. They meet the requirements here, so we can go ahead and add. It's like we have 14 green apples and we're adding 8 green apples. When we do that, total in our basket in the grocery store would be 14 plus 8, 22 green apples, in this case x cubed. Okay? It does not change the fact that they're green apples. They're still x cubed. They're still the item that we started with. We're just counting how many we have of them. Okay? Let's look at number 20. If I have 14x to the 4th plus x to the 4th. Okay, so I've got exactly matching variables, x. I also have exactly matching exponents to the 4th. So now I get to combine and I'm going to be adding. So I'm adding 14x to the 4th plus x to the 4th. Well, on our previous example, I looked at 14 plus 8. I looked at the coefficients and I saw what I needed to add together. In number 20, I see I'm adding 14 plus what? Well, whatever's in front of the other term. And I don't see anything, which means that the number that's there is 1. Because 1 times x to the 4th is equal to x to the 4th. So the coefficient in front of, when we don't see it, is going to be 1. So it's 14 plus 1. So it's 15x to the 4th. Notice the x to the 4th remains throughout. because we're adding those together. We have 14 of them, we're adding one more, putting those in the grocery basket, we're out of here. Okay. All right, you try number 22. Again, I pushed you a little bit and I made the number 22, the try problem, a little bit more challenging, okay? So try that and we'll see how you do. Press that pause button and come on back for the answer. Okay, so for number 22, you should end up with negative 1x squared, or you could write that as just plain old negative x squared. We've got subtraction, order matters here, so you end up with a negative x squared. We'll talk about that one completely when we get to class, so make sure you note any questions that you have about that one. I'm pushing you a little bit here. I want to make sure you're really solid with exponents. It's critical for your success this term and beyond. What if it looks like number 26 though? 8x squared plus 8x cubed. Well, what's different here is they are not matching exponents. So these are not like terms. You cannot combine these. Okay? Not everything can be dwindled down to a simple one term answer. Okay? Not everything can be simplified. So this one is just done. Okay? It's done as is. And I don't know if it's human nature or just us as students or just us as Americans. I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I don't know what it is. But it's very hard for us to walk away from a problem and say nothing can be done. Maybe it's that, that spirit in us, like, well, we always want to try. We always want to work hard. There must be something we can do. I like that spirit. That's great for humanity. In algebra, sometimes you're just done. Okay, it may not be a nice, simple, tidy package. In this case, you can't combine it any further. 8x squared plus 8x cubed doesn't have any like terms to combine. Okay, we'll see you at page 2.